The ancient Greeks were well known for the large number of annual festivals they celebrated, ranging from smaller rituals to large multi-day festivities which differed from polis to polis. However, the New Year's celebration rarely ever comes up in those conversations. In this episode, we will examine the existence of various ancient calendars of Greek antiquity and determine if and how the Hellenic city-states celebrated the New Year. Although the early traces of what resembled a calendar date to the Mycenaean and even Minoan times, it wasn't until the emergence of the first city-states that we have a more detailed picture of how the ancient festivals looked like and which dates were the most important in the Hellenic society. In Sparta, the annual festival of Carneia was of the utmost importance, while in Athens, roughly 60 days each year were reserved for various annual and other festivals and celebrations. Among those, we rarely ever come upon the celebration of the New Year. To better understand the occurrence of the New Year in ancient Greece, we must first examine the ancient Greek calendar. Each year was divided into 12 lunar months, with an occasional 13 intercalary month added in order to cover the inconsistencies with the lunar movements. However, when it comes to the calendar, each city-state, being independent and completely autonomous when it came to their local affairs, devised their own version of the calendar, which did not necessarily start at the same time or even carried the same names for days and months as their neighbors and other city-states across Greece. While the calendars in many of the city-states began between fall and winter, the Athenian, also known as the Attic calendar, famously began in summer. The month of Hecatombion, which began at sunset with the first visible crescent moon, also marked the beginning of the new year for the Athenians. Although the end of the current and the beginning of the new year was no reason for widespread celebrations in ancient Greece, the Athenian officials were nevertheless tasked with holding a religious ceremony in order to obtain the favor of the gods for the upcoming year. The ceremony, however, was limited to a relatively small number of people, only including the outgoing city officials who made offerings and sacrifices to Athena, the protector of the city of Athens, and Zeus, the ruler of the Greek pantheon and the king of the Olympian gods. In Delphi, the new year started with the month of Apelaios, likely taking place in late autumn and early winter. Predictably, it was the month of god Apollo, who therefore received offerings for the Delphian priesthood. Furthermore, the first festival of the year, called Apelaia, lasted for 3 days and included offerings for the children, for the youth, and for the marriage. On the Island of Rhodes, the new year began in the month of Thesmophorios, likely occurring during autumn. Although, like in most other places throughout Greece, it did not include a major celebration, it likely did consist of an offering and a religious performance from the Rhodian political and religious leaders. In Sparta, although the new year itself doesn't appear to have been extensively celebrated, the first festival of the new year, called the Gymnopaidia, was taken more seriously by the Spartans than any other festivity. The Spartan New Year took place in July, and Gymnopaidia was celebrated over the course of 3 days, featuring different generations of Spartan men performing singing and dancing acts in honor of the Spartan prowess and glory. A tribute was paid to god Apollo, who was also a god of civic reunions, as Gymnopaidia was the first large-scale gathering of the year among the Spartans. Each year would typically have 354 days in the ancient Greek calendars, although this number could vary due to the intercalation so that the calendar would not deviate from the moon phases, but sometimes also for the political rather than timekeeping reasons. In 419 BCE, when the city of Argos attacked their neighbors Epidaurus, the Epidaurian allies, Spartans, suspended their operations due to the Carneia, a sacred festival for all of Dorians, which included both Argives and Spartans. The Argives, however, decided to manipulate their own calendar, adding to it several more days, so that the festival would not begin until the war is finished. Although the allies of Argos did not accept this modification, and instead left home respecting their own calendar, the Argives themselves proceeded and eventually defeated the neighboring rivals. Much like in other city-states at the time, the New Year itself was not widely celebrated in Argos, other than a small ritual by the officials that marked its beginning. In Macedon, the New Year began in the month of Audinias, which resembled December. Eventually, as Alexander's empire spread through the Middle East during the 4th century BCE, several features were adopted by the calendar of Babylon, perhaps the world's most glamorous city of the time. Eventually, later on, by the Roman times, the New Year celebration started getting much more popularity, as in 46 BCE, it was Julius Caesar that instituted January the 1st as the first day of the New Year throughout the Roman realms. It was at this time that such practice, with some local variations, became widespread throughout Greece as well. People would cheerfully greet each new year, wishing each other happiness and luck, and decorating their homes with green branches, enjoying extensive family feasts, parties, and celebrations. So now we have the answer that the ancient Greeks, although not widely celebrating, did in fact organize rituals in recognition of the new year, a practice that was rather restricted to the city officials and a limited number of people, and did not include the mass gatherings like it does today. However, it was thanks to the Romans that such widespread celebrations became practice and tradition throughout the areas they controlled, and thus eventually throughout the Hellenic world, a practice that survived until this very day. Please consider subscribing and sharing the video, as this is a one-person production and it greatly helps the visibility of the channel. Special thanks to History with Sai, Nico, Chris Ernst, Panayotis Yiannopoulos, Fred Leckie, Estate Care, and all of the supporters for their continuous contribution and support throughout the past year. If you wish to join our Patreon club, feel free to click the link in the video description. WanaxTV wishes you happy winter holidays, and we'll see you again soon.